to see you, Dondré. How are you?
Sister, I am so good. This is so awesome. I am so glad to be with you because it's been too long, number one.
That's right.
And then number two, to have this conversation about this. I
Yes,
am ready.
yes. Well, it's been a year this month since we ran into each other at a salon in LA. Time flies. So,
Crazy.
so I have to tell everyone. I hope you don't start crying when I say these things, but I mean them, right? So when I thought about this series and the first man I should talk to, I said, who is one someone people will recognize, but two, you had the distinction of being one of the kindest men that I have ever met. And let me tell you, people don't know this story, but we were on Martha's Vineyard at my event. My car had a flat on a dark dirt road. This man, Dondré Whitfield, gets out in his church clothes, says, don't worry, sister, sit back, I got this. You proceed to fix a flat tire with me holding my little cell phone light. And that stuck with me because I know a lot of brothers may have been like, you have AAA, how we go get this fixed? You said, no, I got this. And that has stuck with me since that very moment. So I wanted you to know that's the distinction that you bear. You are such a kind soul, and I sincerely appreciate you. Uh-oh, is he frozen?
Talk about in the book is that we as men are supposed to be the walking tree of our house and our community. And just to know that I have been walking it out that way, and you never know how someone is going to receive it. You think to you, it didn't mean much to me. And I, to be honest with you, my flesh was going, we don't need to be doing this. Look how we dressed. And we in the middle of nowhere, we went, right? But my manhood would not allow me to sit idly by and wait for something. My sister is sitting here, has no idea, what's going to I said, this is what God put you in this position for a reason.
Yep.
So that just warms my heart. These are all the things that I talk about in the book, but I'm so fired up about this topic because this is my life.
Yes.
So yes. I am ready.
Good. Well, I figured you would be. So let's start here. I want to know, and everyone else does, COVID has been a beast all in itself, right? I mean, it's something that none of us saw coming. We're not sure what the next step will be. What's been getting you out of the bed, though, on these hard days? I mean, what's been getting you up?
Just knowing that my service as a man, and how ironic, right? We're talking about that.
Yeah.
My service as a man doesn't just mean that I'm the best husband to my wife or the best father to my children. But that my service extends beyond my home, like it extended to you.
Yeah.
Right. So my assignment is to matriculate males into men. Most people don't even understand that has to be a process. Many people think that males turn into men when they turn a magical age.
Wow.
18, 21. Car companies think the magic age is 25, right? We're not going to rent to you until you're 25 because we don't think that you're a man until then.
Right.
So, you're 25. Oh, you must be a man now. Okay, we'll rent you a car now. No. And one of the reasons why I stress that is because in my work in going across the country and teaching males how to matriculate into manhood, the first thing I ask them is, raise your hand if you're a basketball fan. Everybody raises their hand. Name your favorite basketball players. The same names come up. The MJs, the LeBrons, the Kobes, the Magics, the Kareem, right?
Yeah.
All of those. Name me one thing that they all had in common. They had talent. They had grit. They had perseverance. They were tough. They could jump. They could shoot. Yeah. Keep going. You're still not getting to the one thing that they all had in common. After about 30, they all look at each other, quizzical look on their face. They still haven't gotten it. What is it? Coaching. They all had coaching from the time that they played AAU basketball to high school to college to the pros. They all had coaching. And guess what? As their platform grew, they didn't get less coaching. They got more coaching. Why? Because more was at stake. So what does that tell us? In our manhood, as we get older, as we move through our life and our careers, as we gain our own families, we get married, we have children, we move from being the son to being the patriarch. More things are at stake. So that we don't get less coaching, we should get more coaching. So if we know that it takes great coaching in order to become a great basketball player, why is it that we think that we don't need great coaching in order to become a great man?
Wow, that's powerful. So
right?
That's powerful. Powerful.
Who taught you how to be a man? Now we move into the very controversial part of this discussion. Because many of our brothers are going to say, my mother.
That's true. And is that
now
who coached you? Who coached
okay,
you?
So watch this. Let's reverse engineer this for a second. Whenever I'm talking to a room full of women, I ask them, raise your hand if you're raising a son. Raise your hand if you're raising a son by yourself. Raise your hand if you think you can turn your son into a man. They high five, they spike a football, they do an end zone dance. Girl, you know I got to teach him how to be a man because his father ain't going to teach him how to be a man. He ain't even know what. Girl, I got to do. And I said, okay. I got you. I love you. Let me ask you a question. I got a 16-year-old daughter. Can I teach her how to be a woman? He's so crazy. He know he can't teach that girl how to be no woman. That's crazy. Now he know better than that. He crazy, ain't he? And they high five. They spike the football. They do the end zone dance again because it's crazy that this man wants to teach, not that I want, but they think I want to teach my daughter how to become a woman.
Wow.
Now, somehow, they see how impossible it is for me as a man to teach my daughter how to be something I'm not. Hello? They see how crazy that is when it's on me, but they don't see how crazy it is when it's on them. You cannot teach your son how to be something you are not. You can teach your son how to be responsible. You can teach him how to be compassionate. You can teach him how to care for himself. You can even teach him your concept of caring for others. But in terms of teaching him how to be a man, which is something you are not. Look, my mother taught me how to cook. But it didn't make me a chef. Why? Because my mother was not a chef. She couldn't teach me how to be something that she was not. If I want to become a chef, who do I have to get under the tutelage of? A chef. If you want to become a man, you got to get under the tutelage of a man. Because this comes with some specific difficulties, some specific issues, some specific information that only a man can give you in order to matriculate you into manhood. You Your mom can teach you what she thinks you should be based on what she didn't get in her relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But how to be that is something she can't teach you how to be.
Wow.
It's almost like this idea of us. I've spoken to a great many people who are accomplished. Now, if you'll notice, I'm choosing my words very carefully. There's a huge difference between being accomplished and being successful.
Yeah, there is.
For the many people who look at me and are fooled by the fact that I have had a 36-year career as an actor and think that that is my life. It is not. Acting is my passion, but activation is my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I coach some pretty accomplished people in the space of a life coach, and I also counsel marriages.
Wonderful.
One of the things that I talk about in that space is, look, we have to be very specific about the information and instruction that we receive, because that gets us to the other side, right? So many people who are accomplished, they go, well, I'm glad that my mother beat me, because look, I've become this successful person. And I always tell them, listen, you didn't become accomplished because you were beaten. You became accomplished despite the fact that you were beaten, not because you were beaten.
Mm-hmm.
That's different. You can think because I was accomplished, that would be the equivalent of, let's say you were molested at 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And you become accomplished. So these people begin to think that everything that's happened to them were the great ingredients that went into them becoming accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
It would be just as ridiculous a notion as me saying, well, you know, one of the reasons why you became accomplished was because you were molested at 10.
Mm-hmm.
You would go, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I'm like, exactly. You being beaten with an extension cord has nothing to do with your accomplishment. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can sit there and you can say, well, if I wasn't beaten, and, you know, I would have gotten, you know, maybe I would have gotten in trouble, you know, in the street. When I got beat, that had a very short-term effect in terms of derailing my behavior. After a while, and any person who's been abused, not to say that my mother, you know, was out to abuse me, but that repetitive engagement after a while to a child. Children are resilient. So if you beat a child and you keep beating that child, after a while, they will numb themselves out to that experience. And it will begin to have less of an effect. Because after a while, they're just like, this is just what it is. And I'm going to catch a beating. Right? So what I want people to really identify with is that we become what we become, accomplished, successful, based on the information and instruction that we receive, and then our ability to be able to execute what it is that we receive. I counsel a brother who has won 8 Grammys, singer-songwriter, partnered with one of the most well-known acts all across this entire world. Alcohol, drug addiction. I counsel him and his wife in their marriage because there was infidelity involved in it. And one day we were going through one of my male versus man sessions. And I said, do you consider yourself to be successful? And he thought for a second. And he said, well, yeah. And I said, interesting. And I began writing. And he said, don't you consider me to be successful? And I said, no, sir. What? What do you mean? I said, well, let's take it step by step. You've got 4 children in your home. They don't really know you. They don't trust you. Your wife wants to divorce you. Your other child that lives across the country doesn't much know you and is in much pain about how she has experienced you. And everyone else on your periphery, family and friends, don't really trust you either, but they stay in the cipher based on what they can get from you financially. Now, I'm going to ask you again, do you consider yourself to be successful? And he looked at me again and he said, no. I said, right. I said, you are accomplished. You have accomplished a great many. Look, you've got 8 Grammys to prove it. You are an accomplished singer-songwriter. But success is being able to balance properly your professional and personal life. That is success.
How?
Now, when I tell people that, you know, they think that they know me after 36 years of being an actor on from the Cosby Show to Queen Sugar, I always tell them that acting is my passion, but activation is my purpose. The reason why God put me on the face of this earth, the intention behind my creation was to be a servant leader. Many people know my wife, Sally Richardson Whitfield. She is been an accomplished actress, now an accomplished director.
Right.
But I am the leader of my house. Despite the fact that my wife, extraordinarily intelligent, a great leader in her own right, South Side of Chicago, she is no shrinking violet, proud Black woman, all of those things. If she were sitting right next to me, she would tell you the exact same thing. My husband is the leader of our house. Not because I tell people what to do. I just told you she's from the South Side of Chicago.
Right.
She's Black woman.
And she is brilliant.
Not going to be brilliant. Not going to be able to tell my wife nothing.
Right.
Okay. I didn't become the leader of my house because I tell people what to do. I became the leader of my house because I show people what to do. I am the walking model that everyone in my house, including my wife, including my children, including my pets, they can mirror because I am modeling behavior for them every day.
Awesome.
I am constantly looking at my shortcomings. I am constantly examining my performance so that every day, the version of Dondré that you speak to today is not going to be the version of Dondré that you speak to tomorrow. Because what's going to happen tonight, and I do this every single night, is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to examine the performance of my day. I'm going to first affirm myself in what I did great. And then the things that I didn't do so great, we got to make an adjustment, bro, because tomorrow we can't show up the same way that we showed up yesterday.
I love this. I mean, so you've taken what I know had to be an intentionality from your career, because you've been in space for 30 some years, right?
15 years old.
Right. But most people can say that the first time I saw you, you were Robert.
Right.
On the Cosby Show.
Right.
And so tell us a little bit about that, though. I mean, I see a correlation between that journey and where you are now. So basically, you took your career and some lessons, and now they're manifesting in your personal life. So when did you know, though, as an actor? Because I love how you talked about successful versus being accomplished, because there are tons of accomplished people walking around, right?
Yes.
So when did you know you were supposed to be an actor? You were supposed to do this.
It's so interesting because after, so I gotta talk about that, and then I have to talk about the lessons that I learned or that I took away from my work.
Yes, that's exactly right.
When I knew I was supposed to be an actor, I was in elementary school. Elementary school, 4th grade, I do this play and do this performance. And I literally, after the performance and coming out of school, trying to get back home, which was really just across the street, I was mobbed. Every girl my age and older, I was in the 4th grade, so 5th and 6th graders also, I was mobbed. I literally was chased home because of the frenzy and the excitement. And every adult that was there in attendance said to my mother, that boy is something special.
Wow.
My teacher, Miss Jackson, she was unmarried. Miss Jackson, may she rest in peace. She was always trying to get me to be in her plays. Mm-hmm. And I never wanted to be in any of these plays. Being in the play, I grew up in the hood. Like, people look at me as this light-skinned dude, especially, you know, they look at Robert. One of my greatest performances as an actor was playing Robert. Because I grew up in the hood.
Right.
Because I grew up around guns. Because my father was in and out of jail my entire life. So for me to portray this kid who owned a bunch of beautiful sweaters and sat down and talked to, you know, Dr. Huxtable about biorhythms and wanted to go steady when by that time I had already had sex, that was one of the greatest performances of my life. Because everything about my life was the complete antithesis of Robert Foreman.
Wow.
Everything. By that time, I had already had a gun put to my head because somebody was trying to steal my best friend's leather bomber jacket. So I'm playing this kid, this 13-year-old kid who has no idea about any of these things. And yet I've experienced all of those. So when I experienced this teacher who would come out of her pocket, she bought me my first pair of tap shoes.
Wow.
On a teacher's salary. She was the only teacher who lived in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
She wrote the African version of West Side Story that she called Harambe. It was an African version of West Side Story. And she made names, my character's name was Chad, right? Which is a country in Africa, right? This is how forward-thinking she was, how Afrocentric she was, how informed she was about the fact that we needed these experiences. And so all of these experiences made me realize, I love this. And then one day she came in with a list of actor salaries. And I was like, wait a minute, people get paid to do this? And she was like, yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, right? But then watch this. Fast forward to, at the age of 15, I get my first job.
Yeah.
The Cosby Show. The most watched show, television history.
Yeah.
I go literally, the dichotomy, here it is, the dichotomy of my life is that I had a dressing room before I had my own bedroom. Y'all, the audience don't even get that. I was sharing a bedroom with no doors with my 2 brothers. I had my own dressing room before I had my own bedroom. Going from this opulent, beautiful, like, space on television to coming home to Brooklyn where literally I got to get into a fist fight. to survive. And then I began watching everything. And I want to tell you something. One of the greatest lessons that I got from watching my career and watching what I know a man is supposed to be was all of these great lessons that I got from Bill Cosby about how to be a black man in this industry, how to conduct myself, how to be a professional. And remember what I talked about, the difference between being successful and being accomplished. Bill Cosby was like a surrogate father to all of us. And I'll never forget, I was shooting Queen Sugar. I had come home and I sit on the edge of my bed. I turn on the television and he's about to be put in cuffs. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, wow. And it taught me an extremely valuable lesson. There's been no greater philanthropist than Bill Cosby. There are literally thousands of people who have experienced higher education as a result of his philanthropy, his gift giving. Arguably one of the greatest comedians of all time, watch show in television history. And yet, when you say the name Bill Cosby, the first thing that's going to pop into your head is what happened with those women and that experience. Despite all of the great things that he did, now, forever, unfortunately, the first thing you're going to think about when the name Bill Cosby is said is you're going to think about that stuff first. And it taught me this lesson. As a man, if I don't walk out what I'm supposed to walk out as a man in the right way in my personal life, it will affect everything that I ever do in my personal life. If I don't walk out my purpose as a man, it will taint and tarnish everything else that I ever do great in my life. People, I got asked when I was doing a interview for a magazine, they said, what's the greatest role you've ever played? And I said, the role that I play as a man. And they were like, what movie was that? I said, no movie. My life. If I don't play my role as a man, it will taint and tarnish everything else that I ever do in my life. So when you had a man in front of you to change your tire, it will either be, the story will either be my brother. That man either said, my clothes are more important to me than your safety. And about you getting to the next space, or the story will be, my brother is exactly who God intentioned him to be. See it? So every single day as men, our job is to walk out what our purpose is. And that is to be a man of service. In my book, Male versus Man, I talk about how males look to be served, but men look to be of service.
Of service.
So there's a huge difference between your passion and your purpose.
So I think this is an excellent segue here. We're in COVID and it has been horrible. I mean, it is horrible, right? I mean, we could go on and on and on about how horrible this is. And daily I try to encourage people to think about how they can reset out of this moment, right? What can you learn? What will you do differently? And as you're just thinking about men, right, be it professionally, thinking about their careers, because many have lost their jobs and can't provide for their families the way they used to. Many are very afraid of what their ability to provide. What is it that you can say to men, right, in this moment, with this as an opportunity to pivot? What are 2 or 3 things men can take and apply both personally and professionally to pivot from this moment better?
What was God's, while God didn't create this moment, so God didn't say, okay, I'm creating coronavirus today, and I'm going to send this down to kill off some of my sons and daughters.
Mhm.
God didn't do that. That's not the God that I serve. Okay. So no great parent would do that.
Mhm.
Okay. So the virus didn't come from God, but God has an intention behind everything and uses everything for our good, right? The greater good. The Bible tells us that, right? We need to ask ourselves, what would God use this moment for? What would be the intention behind me being put on a virtual timeout of life, right? What if I said to you, and I said previously that I have a 16-year-old daughter. Additionally, I have an 11-year-old son. Of course, our children want to get right, get back to the way things were and all of that. So let me ask you a question. If God said, I promise you 99 years of life, 99 years of living, what if I said to you, you're guaranteed to get all 99 years of that life, but that you need to sacrifice one of those years in order to reset your trajectory, in order for you to have clarity, in order for you to be whole? Would you do it? My kids said, well, yeah. I said, that's what this year is. This is your sacrificial lamb. This is your sacrificial year to gain clarity about what life really means. Many of us as Black people, particularly when we don't have money, we think life is about money. If I get money, I'm going to be happy.
No.
Now, I don't have to tell you, this is not who we're talking to.
Right.
I know because I come from no money. And because we were unhappy and didn't have money, I fell into the trap that we all fall into, which is as soon as I get me some money, I'm going to be happy. You know, as well as I do, we know a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of money, and they are a whole bunch of unhappy.
Unhappy. Yes.
Okay? My people, listen to me right now. I'm talking to you. Money does not make you happy. It will alleviate the pressure that sometimes leads to your unhappiness. The pressure of meeting your financial commitments. I get it. Money itself will not make you happy. Here is what will make you happy and sustain your happiness. You are going to love me. I wrote a chapter in my book, Male versus Man, called Happy Wife, Happy Life. It's not what you think. The reason why I called it Happy Wife, Happy Life is because that notion is a total misnomer. If, as a man, my job is to make sure that I do the things that will alleviate the pressure that my wife may be experiencing, so that she can experience her life in happiness. But I cannot make my wife happy. I can make her breakfast. I can make a dinner. I cannot make her happy. That's her job. I did a digital series called Male versus Man. I talked to my boy, Will Smith. Will said he retired from, and he told this to Jada, he retired from the game of trying to make her happy. Now they got landslides money.
Right.
And if Will Smith can't make Jada Pinkett Smith, everybody who thinks that happiness is about money, hello, if Jada Pinkett Smith is unhappy, and they got a property, the name of their property is called Her Lake. Her meaning Jada. The property is called Her Lake. If you are unhappy and you got your own lake,
That's right. That's
they don't hear me. Listen to me. You will be a person who gets all this money and are still extremely unhappy. And here's why. When I said to you earlier that acting is my passion, but activation is my purpose, I have a great many passions. Acting is my passion. Golf is my passion. Scuba diving is my passion. Horseback riding is my passion. I have a great many passions. None of them are my purpose. Meaning, when God created me, his intention behind my creation was not to play golf. His intention behind my creation was not to scuba dive. His intention behind my creation wasn't even to be an actor. That's something I chose for myself. What God did was he allowed my acting to be a platform that would eventually suit my purpose. Go with me, y'all. Come with me. Come with me. Come with me. I'm bringing you someplace. Hold on. Hold on. Your passion is only a fraction of what your life is. And this year during COVID, you got put on a literally virtual, a virtual timeout from life in order for you to find your purpose. Because this entire time, you've been fooled into thinking that your passion is your entire life. Mm-hmm. It isn't. How are you serving humanity? That is your purpose, right? How do I get to my purpose, Dondré? I'm glad you asked. Your pain will inform your purpose. They didn't hear me. Your pain will inform your purpose. You know all that emotional stuff that you put into a box and that you put into the attic of your life so that you didn't have to deal with it anymore? I'm going to need you to go up there. I'm going to need you to grab that box. I'm going to need you to get you a box cutter. I'm going to need you to open up that box, and I'm going to need you to sift through your pain, because it will reveal your purpose. Watch. My father kidnapped me at 6 years old. My father at 12 years old basically taught me how to be a cheater in relationships. My father had basically abandoned me because he was in and out of jail for all of the formative years of my adolescence. My father did not teach me how to be a man. He didn't teach me how to be a husband. So my father, based on his inaction, left me at a great deficit. At the age of 26 years old, while I was on All My Children, yeah, I know you remember that too. I was on All My Children. I go back into Brooklyn because one of my boys called me and said, yo, man, your pops just got out prison. I go back to Brooklyn. I find my father. I put him in my expensive luxury car. Why? So that I could hurt my father in a way that I felt like he had hurt me. I was going to show him, look, based on all the stuff that you didn't do for me, look what I did for myself. Look what I got. You ain't never going to have this. I did this on my own. I did this by myself. I don't need you. So at 26 years old, I told my father if I ever saw him again, one of us was going to lose our life, and it wasn't going to be me. I said it a little differently, but I don't speak that way anymore. That was Brooklyn Dre. I'm speaking as disciple Dondré. So fill in the blanks. You can figure it out. There's a whole lot of F's and stuff like that going on. All right. 20 years, my father and I were estranged from each other. Until my daughter asked me one day, and she just asked me a very simple question. She said, Dad, do you know where your father is? And it made me realize, wow, I was teaching my children that even though I was telling them to be forgiving and to be compassionate and give people grace, in this moment, because I hadn't reconciled with my father, I was in fact teaching them, be forgiving, give people grace, be compassionate, but do that for everyone except one person who you deem unworthy. And so I went about doing the work of finding my father and reconciling with him after being estranged for 20 years. Why am I telling you all this? I was in pain about not getting from my father what I needed to get. I have been carrying that pain for 20 years. What I finally realized was this. And this was the part that allowed me to have empathy for my father. Instead of looking at my father like the 70-year-old version of himself, I began looking at my father like the 7-year-old version of himself that didn't get what he needed in order to become the man that he needed to be for himself, to become the father that I needed him to be for me. And as a righteous man, not a religious man, but as a righteous man, I realized that now, not that it was important for me to be a son to my father, but to be a brother to my father. To give him forgiving, to give him grace, to give him compassion, to give him knowledge that he didn't have, that I now possess. Right? In sifting through the pain of my father, because I knew you were like, how is he going to get back around to purpose? In sifting through the pain of my father and dealing with him, unlocked my purpose. And I saw it clearly. Wow. My father would have become a great man had he had great information and instruction.
Yeah, a great coach.
A great coach. So now, if you don't want your other brothers to experience what your father experienced, if you don't want your other brothers to experience what you in fact experienced because you didn't have a great coach, then daggone it, you got to become the coach that gives out the information and instruction that will allow these brothers to matriculate into manhood. Now you have your purpose.
Dondré.
And it came out of my pain.
Out of your pain. You are amazing. I thank you so much for sharing your truth and being so open and honest. And yes, you have a beautiful, brilliant, and amazing wife and beautiful children.
Yes, indeed. Yes, I do.
Tell them thank you for sharing you this morning because it's early where you are.
and my babies, I literally I made breakfast. I tell people all the time, I got 2 kids, 3 dogs, and 3 careers.
That's right.
And my wife I'm in California right now. My wife is in New York directing, being brilliant.
Oh, okay. Being
While
brilliant.
dad is handling everything.
So thank you so much for this. And if we don't talk before the holidays, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You
And
too,
I
my sister. I love you.
love you too. And it will not be a year before we talk again.
It sure won't. It sure won't. It
Thank,
sure won't.
thank you and stay
Miss
safe.
you
Miss
and
you.
adore you.
Oh, thank you so much. Talk
We'll
to you.
talk soon. Okay,
Bye-bye.
sis. Bye.